And welcome back to Behind the Barn Door. I'm Dr Dawn Harper, and I am so super excited about today's show because I have with me Lil Rice from Giffords Circus. So hold on to your seats, guys. We're going to hear all about life in the circus in lockdown and how everything's going. So Lil, thank you so much for your time. I'm really excited about this. And I don't even really know where to start. I was looking at your website this morning, just thinking about having the opportunity to chat to you. And the first thing that absolutely struck me was darling Nell's kind of strapline, if you like, where she said she looked through her childhood eye and saw ponies, a dressing up box and magic, and that was where Gifford started. And it's been going for this would have been the 20th year.
Yeah, the hoolie that would have gone out, yeah, it would have been our 20th. So we'll just have to do it again.
You will. So how did it start? So that's Nell's image, her vision. What happened? Where did she start?
Well, I mean, so she worked, her first kind of circus job was when she worked on her gap year for her basically cousin, Gerald Balding, and his family had a circus in New York called Circus Flora, and she went and worked for them. But she'd always wanted to. There's a brilliant poster that we've got up in the office, which was, they agreed to have a children's party, and Nell and Clover designed it as a kind of invitation to the circus and what you'd see in it. And so it's a beautiful picture of a big top and explaining there'll be a pony, there'll be a dog, there'll be sawdust. So I think she'd always wanted to do circus, but she went to university, went to Oxford University, and then when she came back, her and her then husband, Totty Gifford, started Giffords Circus together. And it started really small, but Hay and Y was really their, like, in 1999, Hay and Y was really their first sort of big show that they did. Yeah. It was just called Giffords Circus then.
I mean, it is totally magical, and I hadn't realised until Nell came when my daughter was in Pony Club, and she came to talk about Giffords and so on. And it was only then that I realised that she'd, I think, got a first in English from Oxford. Yeah. And you kind of get that when you go to watch Giffords Circus. The storytelling is phenomenal, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Nell's imagination, I mean, I've never seen or met anything like it. And the combination of her and Cal McChrystal doing the shows over the last few years, I mean, complete magic happened. I mean, even before, in the early days, Nell used to create the whole thing herself, including the costumes, and it was kind of everyone would pitch in, but as it got bigger, they got choreographers and musical directors and then directors, and it would always come from an initial idea from Nellie, and then her and Cal would work on it. And over the years, as Nell got a bit iller, Cal took over more, but it would always come from an initial conversation with Cal and Nell.
So, in a normal year, you know, you'd be really busy right now, I know. But so when you finish a tour at the end of the summer, and then do you all just have a break, and do you have a specific date that you get back? How does it work? Well,
some people will have a week. Some of the circus performers will have a week off or 2 weeks off, and then they go straight into the next thing. We finish at the end of September, so there'll be Halloween shows and then Christmas shows. So the real kind of hardcore circus artists will just go all the way around, all year round. But we normally, we have a week at the end where we'll pack everything away, clean the tent, get everything tidied up. And then normally there is a kind of a week or 2 weeks of hiatus when people will go off and do things. And then kind of we just have to click straight into preparing for the next show, the next year. So by the time you get to November, December, there'll be production meetings, and then you'll get into January for next year, January, February, and then March rehearsals will start. Or historically, April rehearsals would start, and we go out in May, but this year we would have gone out a month early in April, and we'll be doing the same next year.
Yeah, wow, okay. And when you're training, how many hours of I mean, you're also physically fit. Watching you guys is just something else.
Well, yeah, it is. I mean, if you're a circus artist, your body is your life, so it's all about maintenance all the time, and if you stop for a bit, often, like, I'm going straight to my shoulders because that's where I have most of my issues, but if you're a circus artist, if you give your body too long off, all the old injuries that you've had will come back, so you kind of have to keep at a standard, a kind of level of fitness, which is actually why lockdown's quite strange for all of us, for circus artists, because you're training, and normally you'd be training and doing some like rehab, and then you'd be doing a show. But at the moment, we're training to just do nothing.
I do remember last summer seeing you on that steer wheel. That's just utterly awesome.
Oh,
How did you pick that? How did that work? Where did you start?
Well, I started because actually Nell told me about a circus school in London that was called Circus Space, and it's now called the National Centre for Circus Arts, and it's in Hoxton, so like just tucked in next to Hoxton Square. You probably wouldn't even know it was there. And they told me about it while I was on the tour, the War and Peace tour, which was 2011, and I missed the company photo that year to go and do my audition. And you audition, I had to like very quickly learn, I learnt silks actually very quickly in a couple of months to do my audition. And I really don't like aerial, I can't deal with the pain of it. But so then after you get in, you then have 2 terms to try everything out. So I tried everything. I tried aerial, I tried tight wire, acrobatics, trampolining, you try everything. And I saw this guy called Charlie Wheeler, who's a really good friend of mine now, and I saw him doing steer wheel in the GC.
Great name.
I know. Weird, right? Except his name's got 2 L's in it, but it is exactly. I always joke that that's why he chose it. But I kind of chose it because, well, first of all, I had some injuries that I got in my shoulders from the first ever job I did, which was a job for the Olympics, for like the Cultural Olympiad. It was like the week in the lead up to the Olympics. And I did a brilliant job that I will always be thankful for, but it was very hard on my body, where we did like free diving and dangling off the London Eye and...
As you do.
Terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying. But they wouldn't let me do aerial because I had tears in both my shoulders, but I wanted to do a discipline where I could sing and do circus at the same time, because I'd seen it a bit, but not a lot. And at that time, I'd never seen anybody singing steer wheel, and that there actually weren't very many women who were doing steer wheel at that point. So I asked Charlie to give me some like sneaky extra help on the side so that I would be picked to be able to do that as my discipline. And it worked, and me, along with my 2 best friends at school, Fiona and Jess, all 3 of us did steer wheel in the first year, which is, we were the first school to have 3 women learning it at the same time. And we came out of circus school with the company together, the 3 of us. I'm so glad I did it. I love it.
And how long did it take you to master it?
It's such a weird... I mean, I wouldn't say I've mastered it still.
I would.
I
would.
I think if you're like something like that, you're always learning. The most difficult thing to learn was doing the acrobatics and the singing at the same time. That's all about breath control and about knowing that, trusting your body to do the trick while you're remembering to sing the right lyrics. So I've always sung, and so that aspect of it kind of comes a bit more naturally to me. So I had to learn the steer wheel first. So I spent the first year on the steer wheel, I didn't sing at all, really. I just learned steer wheel. And then in my second year, I worked with an opera singer, actually, a coach who helped me learn my breathing, really, and learn how, when you're in flex or when you're like in compression, how to keep singing. But because your stomach muscles and everything is engaged in your core, your voice just kind of comes out. The trick is learning how to not make it go... I can't tell you how that happens, it just happens.
And are you still kind of practising your steer wheel on a daily basis? Or?
I mean, I should be doing it daily, but at the moment I'm not. I'm doing it probably 3 or 4 times a week at the moment. And I practice singing. Like, I finished most of my training sessions with a singing wheel act, so I can just make sure I know how to do it, because 4 months of not doing it is quite nerve-wracking. Especially when you get to my age, to 30, you just worry. Every morning you wake up and think, I'm not going to be able to do it anymore. But, yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess this year must just be so different for you. How are you coping with lockdown?
I mean, I think it's really strange. I think quite a lot of it I haven't taken in exactly, because when something like this happens, you just have to go, right, what are we going to do? How are we going to make it work? So most of the days are just getting on with it, thinking about what's the next thing we're going to do, how are we going to make this better, how are we going to operate in a new world, but then, yeah, it's incredibly hard. I mean, I'm really lucky because I'm living on site at the circus, and we have a few people who are still living there, a few of the circus artists who couldn't get home or who sweetly offered to stay to help us. And so I'm not on my own, which I can't actually imagine how hard that must be for some people. But yeah, it's tantalising because we should be in Oxford at this point, I think.
Well, yeah, and I mean, you know, this would be kind of crazy busy time for you, often 2 shows a day.
2 shows on Tuesdays, shows a day on weekdays, and 3 on the weekend.
Yeah, so crazy, and always sold out.
Yeah.
So I guess, you know, the financial pressure, because of course your animals still need looking after. How are you managing that?
Well, I mean, first of all, it makes me feel so, like, emotional to think about it, but we've had a stream of letters, like, amazingly kind messages and posts on social media with people supporting us and not asking for refunds, but, you know, obviously everyone's having a difficult time at the moment. So what we've been doing is we've been writing to people ground by ground, because we still don't know if we're going to be able to do the show at any point this summer. So we're going on a ground by ground basis, and we've been emailing or sending a letter by post to everyone who's bought a ticket and encouraging them to just hold on until we know more. I mean, the most likely scenario is that we'll be able to do something at the end of this summer, but I mean, really what we assume will happen is we'll just make exchanges through for next year.
Right.
But you don't really know, so we haven't made any call like that other than to just go month by month. We're giving it a month's notice each time.
And how many animals have you got?
We've got we've got my tiny chihuahua, who was Nell's chihuahua. She doesn't eat that much. But then there's Ramazan, who is Natasha Lacey's horse, who he was going to be in the show this year, who's a really beautiful Frisian. And then we've got a little Welsh Section A who's called Otto. And there are 2 more horses as well who were going to be in the show, who have gone with Becca Townsend from Jive Pony. Actually, she also used to work for Unicorn Vaulting in Stowe. Right. It's a really great vaulting school. But so Becca's looking after them because her and I were training them up for the show this year. So there's a lot, you know, there's...
And you've got your chickens still?
Yes, we've got chickens. We've got chickens who are laying eggs, and it's funny, you just kind of have to click into a whole new thing. I mean, amazingly, so my job has switched over from performer and new producer to online sales person. So I'm taking the orders online from all the lovely people who are still ordering things from us, and then, you know, putting on mask and gloves and then taking them to the post office. So that's kind of the way we've been operating. That's kind of all we've been able to do.
You know, a big old deal for you, and a lot of pressure on your shoulders, because this is your first year at the helm, really.
Yeah.
Not the way you expected to be.
I mean, it wasn't the way I'd expected it to be in any way. I mean, in 2018, Nell asked me to come and just shadow her just in case. It was kind of how we'd discussed it. And it was in Barrington, and I remember the conversation really clearly. And I just thought, of course I'll come. Like, I was always going to. I just was going off to do my own thing for a bit, so I'm there. But I just thought she'd be around forever, and I was just going to quietly learn how to do it. But it was a lot quicker than we all thought. So, yeah, it was a bit of a baptism of fire. And then getting ready to go, and then not. So, but I do honestly think that that's life. I think that you get thrown all those things. And Nell worked, like, so hard that it kind of seems only fitting that I would have to also have a real baptism of fire to earn my stripes.
You get the impression, as a viewer, somebody who, you know, loves coming to, and I just think Giffords is wonderful, but there is a bit of a big family feel. Do you feel, is that the way it feels to you? So
Nell's thing about the circus was that Giffords is run on love, and the first thing that you do when performers arrive who've never worked for Giffords before is you introduce yourselves, you find out who they are, you show them around, you make them feel like they're part of the family. And we have company meetings every week where we play ridiculous games, ask how everyone is. It's a company that's run on love, first and foremost, and that was a really important aspect of it for Nell. Her thing was always, she used to say that art is love. And so that the feeling that you get when you're watching all of us together is real. It's 100% true. If you live on top of each other for 6 months like that, you know, your caravans are right next to each other, you can hear the next door person cough, you get to know people, and it's not the kind of place where if you have differences, you just get over them, because it's...
So you literally
lovely.
do, once you set out, that's it. There's no weekend off here.
Oh, no.
Or day off.
No. Yeah, you have one day off a week, and it's a Wednesday. So there's nothing else going on anywhere else. So yeah, we have a Tuesday night and a Wednesday off. We move on. We have a last show on a Monday, and then we move on Monday, and then Tuesday we build up very early in the morning as quickly as we can, so that the rest of Tuesday and Wednesday you get off, and then you start again on Thursday.
And how long does it take to set up the whole tent?
Well, it depends. At the beginning, when the company's new, everyone learns their roles, because everybody in the whole company puts the tent up and takes the tent down. And everyone finds their roles in the first few moves. So there'll be some people who specifically will always do the seating. And that's, so the longer you're doing it for, the quicker, you know, the quicker it gets. 4 hours, 5 hours, can take 8. That's a horrible day in the rain. But then also it's lovely, because you're with all those people, you spend a day doing something really hard and you're really tired, and that's the moment where you have to look after each other and be really careful, and when you see when someone's having a bad day, and you have to help them, otherwise the tent doesn't go up.
But you just said if it's raining, and I guess it must be doubly hard having had such beautiful weather this spring. You'd have been basking.
It's so unfair.
Perfect Giffords weather.
And we've historically often had years when you go out and it's very rainy and you have to put sort of lots of straw around the tent and stop huge, great big rivers from going in the back tent. This year would have been a dream. Absolute dream.
And when you get those days, I mean, you've got some seriously big vehicles laden with heavy stuff. What do you do if you get stuck? Do you have to call on local farmers?
No, I mean, to be honest, historically, like, you know, Tottie's amazing. He could get anything out of a ditch, and so you have the same thing. The people that we have an amazing man called Ian Maller, who's our head of logistics. I mean, I would trust him with my life. He could move a house out of a ditch if someone asked him to. So, you know, the circus is run by people who know how to do that. Right. There's always kind, lovely people who offer to help, but, you know, you put down track, and if you're somewhere like Minchin Hampton, if you leave a mark, you find the specific seed for that bit of like commons land that you replant. You know, you have to.
Do you? That's impressive.
Yeah. And all the sawdust that you use is, you know, there's no plastic in it. You never leave anything behind, and you know, you just have to work out how to make it lovely for the community so you don't leave a horrible mess when you go. It's really important.
And I know you're still trying to do bits, because you've got a show here this Saturday, haven't you, at 7:30?
Yes. So the barn have been amazing here. Like, our circus artists, there are a few of them who haven't been able to go home, and so the barn have given them a place to perform, basically, and they've created their own acts. They've found some costumes from our costume department, and they've picked their own music, and everyone here has given them a place to perform, which is unbelievable. It's massive for us.
Well, we've got a little trailer. Can we have a little look?
Welcome to the Circus Cabaret!
Oh, 7:30 on Saturday, don't miss it. So that's a different way performing. Going forward, have you got plans? Are there other ways that you can bring Giffords back to us?
No, I think the trick now for all businesses is to learn how to be flexible. So we've got various things that will be being announced over the next in the next couple of weeks, and others if we can make them work. But I think it will change your experience a bit, probably, if you have to be 2 meters apart from people. But yes, I mean, we'll be back. We're going to be back with something else, I'm sure, in the meantime, and we'll be back with the Hoolie. We've got a show that's ready to go. It depends how we'll frame it and how it'll work. We don't really know yet.
And how often? So say the Hoolie. Let's hope it is back next year or even at the end of this year. What then happens with the following year? Do you have a core team of people that stay on? Or do you have to start right from scratch and find a whole new...
Well, no, so there's a core kind of production team who mostly stay the same year to year. Performers-wise, it kind of depends on the show. So it depends with Cal whether... So amazing, we don't have to think about the next show yet, but Cal and I have already sent each other a couple of ideas for the next show, but you will choose the acts as per the theme of the show. So that rather than trying to sort of shoehorn people into a character that doesn't work for them, you know, you pick the acts so that they'll work with the look of the show, with the feel of the show, with the dynamics of the show. So that's kind of how you choose. And we have a winter team who's kind of there all the time, like production coordinator and our social media and PR. There's people who are there all the time, and then there are performers who are seasonal.
And who will interview them? Is that your job now?
Well, oh my God. I mean, yes, I guess. But it's more... So it will be up to Cal McChrystal to choose who the acts are. When we do the Hoolie again, we will have exactly the same acts as were booked for this year. Whether that's the end of this year or definitely next year, there won't be anyone different for that. But it starts... I mean, you start thinking about it already. So we would already have been thinking about 2021 this year, like now,
right.
And by the time it got to sort of July, August, we would have known what we were going to do, and we would have known who from the company who were there would be coming back, and then you might well have another couple of months of looking for people. But mostly, we've got a lot of amazing people on our books who apply. They might not have been right for 1 year, so they might come back for another. And then there are people who just come back forever and ever, like Tweedy. Can't get rid of him.
I don't think Giffords would be the same with
us,
really. But I mean, you're a performer. It must be quite tough to just not be performing. That's your life.
Yeah.
How are you coping with that?
It is. I think I miss the applause. I'll just say it. It is. It's really strange, and I think when you're an artist of any kind, especially a live artist, you try out your work or your ideas by presenting it. And I think with lockdown and everything that's going on with COVID-19, you're as an artist, you're making stuff in a vacuum at the moment, or in isolation, or you're making it for a screen, which is really hard, because if you're a singer or a performer or a spoken word artist or anything, you gauge your art by how other people give it back to you. Yeah. And so that is really strange, and I think it's unbelievably amazing, people doing online shows, and but it will be very different for performers, that.
And do you try your acts out on each other? Do you perform to yourselves as a company?
Yeah, completely. And often, so Tatiana, who you'll see in the evening cabaret one, her and I had this conversation. You're always having conversations with people, thinking, imagine if you could mix straps and cereal, or maybe you could do this, or maybe you could do that, or maybe I could have a go at this and you could sing. And so lots of lockdown is quite nice, because you get to try out some things that might not work at all. But if you're an artist who's been doing it for years, you know if it's going to work, but you have to put it in front of an audience then to see whether it really has anything. And that is that's strange.
And so do you tweak the show at all? Once you go out on the road, does the show change through the season?
Not really.
By then
yeah. I mean, I think... No, it doesn't change. There are some occasional, there might be a costume change or something, one small thing, or there may be that it doesn't really happen. People sometimes get very minor injuries, which means you just kind of have to alter your act for a week.
Right.
But you wouldn't, as a performer, you'd never put anything on stage that your body couldn't do for 6 months. You know, you kind of understand, OK, my run is 6 months of this act, so I've got to make what I'm doing... You know, it's got to last, and I've got to have longevity. Or if you're doing a year-long contract, you know, so you play it by ear like that. But once the show's made, you know, you wouldn't remake it. Cal would be very cross.
And is that a bad thing?
Yeah, maybe
You
not,
don't
yeah,
like
yeah.
that cross?
No, he's not. I mean, honestly, I've never seen him lose his temper, but I think that's the thing, is he's a total genius, and if you're a performer, like when I'm in the ring and I'm working with Cal, he's my director, if he tells me to do something, I'll do it, because he's the one watching and it's his idea, and he knows better than I know if that's going to be funny, you know?
Yep.
I might think, oh, that's not going to be funny, I'm going to look like an idiot. But he'll know exactly. So that's another kind of trick as a performer, is if you're working with a director, like, you have the best time if you just... Like Nancy Trotterlandry's exact, like...
Clearly have a lot of respect for him.
Yeah, I love him.
Right.
He was like one of Nell's best friends, and I've known him all the time. He's worked at Giffords, and yeah, he's amazing. He's an amazing man, genius and lovely and hilarious, and
Brilliant.
makes cracking jokes.
I know, so you're based at Fennell's Farm, and I know Fennell's Farm quite well. My daughter, I've spent many, many hours standing on the edge of that school watching my daughter at Pony Club. But do you have any indoor space there?
Yeah, we do. So now we do. I mean, it's not for performance, it's for training only. And we've got a kind of indoor ring where we were training the horses to be, like, ready to be in a ring. Because most of them have worked on a ring, but ring sizes vary. And also, it allows performers to practice inside when the weather's a bit rubbish at the beginning before the tent's up. And also, it means that I can be training Sear Wheel in the barn. Mostly, half of the space is for where we paint the wagons and where we do repairs and like do signage and set and stuff, but the other half of the barn is an indoor ring, basically.
Because you paint and make all your own sets as well, don't you?
Yeah, well, we work with amazing Bee they're called Pyro, and she does quite a lot of the stuff, and then Amy Goodwin, who does all the sign writing, and we've like. Sometimes we take quite a lot of stuff in house, but we'll use expertise from various people who've been doing it for years. Because in sort of circus history, 20 years isn't that long, you know. So it's an amazing milestone to be at. But there are still kind of people, experts in their field, who we need. And we've got an amazing set designer called Takis, who works in West End shows in London. But we'll use local people here who'll help like bring his ideas to life.
And your burgundy and gold is pretty iconic, isn't it? How often do you have to paint the vehicles?
It actually kind of depends on the season. It depends on how rainy it is, depends on if they've got scratched on a move. But you redo them every year, really, because then they look lovely. I mean, that's another one of Nell's huge genius, is her, like, understanding of, like, colour, you know, of a design of something, of making something look brilliant and special. And I have a brand Bible that she made, which now I'm working off. So for any new ideas, I'll always refer back to her brand Bible of colourways.
And was that something she kept anyway, or was that in preparation?
No, that was something she kept anyway.
Wow.
Because in a kind of organisation that was growing, you have a lot of different sort of brilliant people who come in and work on the chassis of this or repaint that, and so it's really important to have a kind of a through line on the design all the way through.
I remember meeting Nell, Pony Club again, actually, and somebody had persuaded her to come and chat to the Pony Club kids, because you can imagine they were absolutely eyes on
Starstruck.
Yes, and she was very shy, actually, compared to the amazing performer. I mean, she had such a presence, didn't she, in the ring? And I was quite surprised by how shy she was.
I think there's always a disconnect with quite a lot of performers, where you would assume that because you love being on stage that you're very good socially as well, and actually it's a difficult thing as just having a conversation with somebody, because it's unscripted, and even if you're doing a talk, to have to stand on stage and speak for half an hour is really difficult if you're used to your normal mode. In Nell's case was like being completely in sort of command of an amazing horse and 600 people watching.
Costume, yes. Yeah.
And so it's a kind of... I mean, she was quite shy as well, definitely, but
massively missed, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Huge.
I mean, the funny thing about all of this is her and I, one winter, when they lived before at Folly Farm near Stowe. We got snowed in one winter when I was there with the kids and her, and she was so good at preparing for the end of the world. It was just like a thing she was really good at. So we started making loads of stewed apple in August or September. So we had a whole freezer full of stewed apple for when we were snowed in. Or like, I just think she would have been quite good at lockdown. She would have known just what to do, and she would have clicked into survivor mode and done really well. So I think of her often, because she'd be painting, she'd be making amazing stuff, she'd be hunkering down.
I'm sure she'd also be looking down and be very proud of what you've done and how you're coping after, you know, that's a real challenge on year one, to be suddenly locked down when your life is out.
Well, I think that I feel very much that I was given this amazing gift out of the blue in a kind of in a shocking way, and actually Nell worked for 20 years and really so hard, back-breaking work, that I think probably a year of lockdown and problem solving is probably the least I could do to earn my stripes.
I think you've certainly earned your stripes. But what do you think will hold the rest of the year? You know, we've mentioned that you might bring the hoolie back at the end of the season.
So we'll either be bringing it back at the end of this year, or we just do it next year. This year, there are a couple of exciting things in the pipeline bubbling away, but like, as I'm sure everyone's dealing with at the moment, if you're in the performance, in the arts, or even in like restaurants and stuff, the idea of 2 meters versus 1 meter will have a huge impact on what circuses, theatres, restaurants can do. And obviously, like, I don't know the science behind it, but all I know is that if the social distancing was able to be reduced to 1 meter, you'd find a lot more stuff would happen, including, like, for us, it would change massively. It would be plan A rather than plan B if it was 1 meter.
Well, and I guess the other thing, of course, is, you know, guidance is changing, isn't it? So if you're trying to plan for something in 2 months' time, you don't quite know what the vista's going to look like.
No. So you can only plan, you know, you could kind of make a plan for July as per what's happening now, but you don't really know. So you kind of have to make the worst case scenario and then hope that by the time you get there, you can lift some aspect of it. That's about as far as we're going at the moment. And we're still, our online thing's running, online shop is going really well. And we're still, like, there's still lots of small ways that we're operating. We've got this cookbook that Nell and Ols wrote together that we're sending out all the time because it's a lovely thing to do in lockdown. And there's lots of, like, nice things like that. It's meaning we've got some extra time to look at set and stuff, and it kind of does give you a breather, but we've had enough of that now.
Yeah. But if people want to support you, they can go online onto the website.
Yeah, I mean, really, all we're asking at the moment is that anybody who has a ticket for this year, you will either have heard from us, a letter from myself, or you will be about to hear from us because we're going out ground by ground. And obviously, we understand that everyone's in a difficult situation at the moment, but we're offering exchanges for the hoolie rather than cancelling it or anything like that. But if you want to support us, like, follow us on social media, like, buy a cookbook. I think that's the same with all creative industries. If they have a second mode of operating, go there, find that thing, find out what would help, because in a lot of cases, people are trying to kind of throw money at organisations, and that's even not necessarily helpful. It's more seeing how they are going to operate now and working like that.
So that you can survive through to the other side. Oh, look, Lil, I really, really hope that the hoolie does get here this year, not next. I could sit and chat to you all day.
Dawn.
I do think they will be super, super proud of you. And please, all of you guys, don't forget to watch Giffords in doing cabaret on Saturday at 7:30 here behind the barn door. Thank you all for watching, Lil. Thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure.
And all of you, take care and stay safe.